Coming up on the Making Waves VO podcast.
However, a lot of narrators are very private about their pseudonym, and I would just put that out there that if you have a pseudonym and you are private about it, that is totally fine. Your reasons for having a pseudonym are your reasons, and no one should out you for that. So don't out your friends if you know both their pseudonym and their regular name that they do their non-romance work under. Don't out it. It's fine.
Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves. Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves. Making waves.
This is the Making Waves VO podcast with Kevin Kilpatrick and Bobby Maxwell.
Welcome to the Making Waves VO podcast, presented by Full Compass, fullcompass.com.
We know VO.
Gonna chat with Jennifer Araya coming up in just a second. She is a prolific audiobook narrator. But first, I got to catch up with my good friend Bobby Maxwell. Bobby, what have you been up to? How have you been?
I'm just kind of taking a summer slowdown this week. I needed it because it was so busy, like the first, through spring. So I'm just chilling. Got a new pool.
Got a new pool. I love that.
Soaking up the summer Tennessee sun.
I love that. And
don't get too excited. It's only 3 foot high.
Oh, so no cannonballs from Kevin?
No.
Okay.
Not unless you want to bust your butt.
Or my knees, because, I don't play around, Bobby. I go big or go home, Cannonball!
I can just imagine it.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're having a good leisurely summer, because I'm sure your work in political is going to pick up pretty soon, right?
Hey, the past 10 days? Are you kidding?
Yeah, exactly. But we won't get into that. We may do another political podcast coming up down the road as we approach election time. But today we're going to talk about audiobooks and the great world of audiobooks. We have an amazing guest. She's an Audie-Award winner, Earphones Award recipient, an American Library Association YALSA Amazing Audiobooks Award winner, on and on. She's narrated hundreds of audiobooks, plus she's a professional cellist and an opera singer. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the in-demand audiobook narrator, Jennifer Araya. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hey! Thank you so much, Kevin and Bobby. It is a pleasure to be here. And that was quite the intro. Thank you.
Well,
you forgot to mention she's my friend because we...
Oh, yeah.
I know. Bobby and I used to live not very far from each other. And Bobby was there when I was really very, very, very first getting started. So thank you, Bobby.
I love that. And I love that you two are friends and you mentioned getting started. And Jennifer, I was looking at your Audible page and you are in demand. You've got 1 to 2 books coming out every week the rest of the year. How did all this start, though? How did all this start for you in audiobooks?
Sure. So my background is in acting. As you mentioned, I am an opera singer. I am a classically trained vocalist and cellist. And so not so much for the cello side of things, but for the opera side of things, I had to take a lot of acting classes in conservatory. So I do have a very strong acting background. And I actually did just a tiny little bit of corporate VO in college as my college job to make a little bit of extra money on the side, and loved it. And at the time, I was about a senior in my undergraduate studies and sort of thinking well, I am enjoying doing the VO stuff so much. Might I want to actually change my focus? But at the time, I did some research into it, and it was not the right time. And I ended up going on and getting my master's, and I worked as a cellist and did opera and so forth for many years. But then fast forward from that time to 2018, and at the very end of 2017, December, I was sort of doing some planning for 2018 coming up. And I had my daughter at home at that time, and she needed to not be on her own all summer. But the work that I had at that time was just a school year job. But we needed some income to come in over those summer months. So I was working a school year, or it was really the concert year, so September through May cello position. But, I needed some money over those summer months. And I'm like, well, what could I do from home that would allow me to still get my daughter to the things that she had going on and also be there so that we weren't paying for childcare? and that I would enjoy. And I happened to think back to that corporate narration that I had done in college as extra money. And I'm like, well, maybe I can do just a little bit of that over the summer. And as I was then in January of 2018, again, planning for that coming summer, realizing, okay, this is what I want to do, I started looking into it and happened to search for how to do audiobooks, which when I was in college, audiobooks, you really needed to be located in New York, LA, which is where the major studios were, or be located in DC, which is where the Library for the Blind is located. If you weren't in one of those three locations, you really couldn't do audiobooks, at least, in the very, very early 2000s. But fast forward to 2018, audiobooks in home studios were now a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that I could do audiobooks, and I'm like whole hog all the way in. I jumped feet first and never looked back. I quit my cello job a little more than a year after that and have been loving the audiobook life since then.
Love it.
In 6 years, you were at the top. Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, congratulations. You were meant to do this.
I really do feel like I have found my place. I have found my people in the colleagues of the audiobook industry, and I've found my creative joy, too, which is just awesome.
Don't go anywhere. The Making Waves VO podcast returns in a moment.
This is Heather Bell, voice actor, and I can tell you you've made an awesome choice listening to the Making Waves VO podcast with Kevin Kilpatrick and Bobby Maxwell. I know you're gonna enjoy it.
Bobby, this is a great time of the year to save money on gear, is it not?
Well, we were talking about a 4th of July, or it was a Christmas in July sale. Of course.
Yes.
Sales are happening everywhere.
Absolutely. And what better way to save money than on gear at Full Compass, fullcompass.com. You go there, you do your shopping, you do your browsing, and then guess what? You enter a special code. If you call them on the phone, you tell them the code. But the code is
We Know VO.
Exactly. You're going to get 10% off almost anything. There's a few exceptions, but almost anything that you buy right now through Full Compass, you're going to get 10% off when you present that code. Enter it at checkout or tell them on the phone. The offer is only good through July 31st, though.
And you get 10% off.
You get an extra 10% off when you put in the code We Know VO, all as one word. Now, it's on purchases, qualifying purchases. It's not valid on parts, cannot be combined with any other offer. Additional exclusions apply. There's a $1,000 maximum discount, limit 1 redemption per customer. Offer not valid on previous purchases. This is non-transferable, single-use promo code. Call 800-356-5844 for details. Void where prohibited. That's the legal speak.
And remember, it's We Know VO for 10% off almost everything that Full Compass and fullcompass.com have.
All one word. Go to fullcompass.com and shop to your heart's content and enter that code, and you should be good to go. Full Compass, fullcompass.com.
We Know VO.
Making Waves returns.
So what does your typical work week look like?
Sure. So Mondays, I usually spend at least the morning kind of figuring out what's happening and sort of getting set. And then Monday afternoon through Friday at lunchtime, I'm pretty much in the studio for most of each workday. And then Friday afternoon, I dedicate to doing admin tasks and sending invoices and catching up on emails and all of those sorts of things. Any emails that come in during the week that can wait till Friday afternoon, then I do have them wait till Friday afternoon. But on a basic normal work week, I'm in the studio recording probably 4, 5, 6, 7 hours each workday. It's a lot of studio time, but it's also a lot of creative fun time. I really enjoy it.
And when you're doing that, you're doing the 4 to 5, 6 to 7 hours a day recording. You're doing self-help, romance, drama, erotica. What's your favorite genre, though, to narrate?
So the ones that I have the most fun doing are often the mystery thriller, but not always. I find that in order to really enjoy my work, I have to genre hop a little bit.
Okay.
If I have more than one book of the same genre back to back, I kind of get really frustrated with myself and just want to pull my hair out and don't want to be doing the work. So I actually intentionally organize my recording calendar so that I at most have 2 books that are the same genre back to back, and I try not to even do that. So this week, I will start out the week working on a political nonfiction piece. I'll finish out the week working on a middle grade book, and the book that I'm starting the following week, this coming Monday, is a romance, sort of women's fiction kind of title for an indie author that I work with. So yeah, I narrate in all of the genres, and I intentionally vary my calendar so that I'm not doing all of one thing at one time. It just creatively, I don't enjoy it.
That's really smart. I mean, just to stay really into it. I can totally see why you do that. I'm curious about, I don't do audiobooks. I know Kevin's done several, haven't you?
A handful, a few, yeah.
Yeah.
I pick my battles with audiobooks.
But I'd like to know what are some of your secrets to voiceover stamina when you're doing audiobooks and in the booth that long? I remember when you got your new booth, you put it on the 2nd floor, and Cincinnati summers can get very hot. I just remember that conversation because you went out and bought a cooling vest, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah. I don't actually have my cooling vest on at the moment, and I'm kind of wishing that I did. I should have grabbed it beforehand. But as I mentioned, this won't go out on a Monday at the time that we're recording it, but right now it is Monday just after lunch. So I spent all morning sort of setting up for the week and figuring out what my recording schedule was going to be. So I wasn't in the booth to realize, hey, it's kind of warm today. But no, I do have a cooling vest, and it is made of cotton with a very slight polyester blend added to the fabric so that it's nice and quiet in the booth, and it holds ice packs against my chest and down my spine, and keeps me quite cool. I mean, it still does get warm in my booth, but the cooling vest allows me to not be focused on, oh my gosh, it's so ridiculously hot. It allows me to be like, hey, it's hot, but I'm doing my work and I'm enjoying the work that I'm doing. In terms of physical vocal stamina, warming up is probably the biggest thing that I would say. Coming from the opera background, I do a lot of vocalizing and singing exercises as part of my warm-up, but it doesn't have to be that. There are all sorts of tongue twisters and, acting vocal warm-up things that can be done for speaking if you're not a singer. And frequent breaks. So I don't stay sitting in the booth for those entire 5, 6, 7 hours. I'm taking breaks. I'm allowing my eyes to focus on things further away than my tablet. I'm stretching my body so that I'm physically able to stay focused and energized, because I do need to maintain my energy for the full audiobook. If I'm falling asleep narrating the audiobook, the listener is going to be falling asleep listening to that audiobook. And as you mentioned, those are really long recording sessions, so vocal stamina is super important, and that's where the warm-ups come in.
Hi, I'm Lacey Deline, voice artist and producer, and you're watching Disney Channel. Podcast. Making Waves. Oh, Kevin and Bobby's thing! Whoops.
Jennifer, I just last week, I had a work colleague friend of mine send me a note, said, hey, Kev, I've got an audiobook that a client is looking for a male narrator. I think you'd be really good for it. And the finished project looks like it's going to be 14 hours. And I said, I'm going to let somebody else do that. Thank you for considering me, though. Thank you very much for considering me. So I turned that down. I've had projects in the past, like narration projects in the past, that I've turned down because a client came to me and said, Kev, you won the audition. Just want to make sure that you're okay with some salty language. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm okay with a little salty language as long as it's not anything pornographic. I get the script and it is 100% pornographic. So I said, and this was something that's going, out to kind of the masses and the public. And anyway, I was like, I respectfully, I'll turn this down. Have you come across projects, whether it be from being too busy or you didn't care for the content, that you've turned down?
So I definitely turn projects down because of scheduling reasons. I do I mean, as you mentioned, I am in the blessed and lucky position of having my services be very much in demand, and audiobooks take a lot of time. So if I'm already recording a 15-hour audiobook during, a specific recording window, then my time is set aside and I can't fit another book into that same recording window. So I do fairly regularly turn projects down from a timing perspective. For content, I do have limits and have turned down projects for those limits in the past. In terms of the romance side of things, you mentioned that I do narrate romance and erotica. I have a pseudonym that I use for that, which I personally am very open about my pseudonym. It's listed on my website, on my business cards. It has my pseudonym as well. My pseudonym is Isabel Ruther, and I separate that out primarily for branding purposes because romance audiobook listeners are avid listeners, and they want to be able to go to a romance narrator's Audible listing or Libro FM if they're using a non-Audible audiobook site. But they want to be able to search that narrator's name and find all of the romance that they've done. Someone who is listening to a romantic fantasy that I did as Isabel Ruther is not going to be interested in the nonfiction political book that I'm narrating this week as Jennifer Jill Araya. So it's very much a branding decision to separate that out for me. However, a lot of narrators are very private about their pseudonym, and I would just put that out there that if you have a pseudonym and you are private about it, that is totally fine. Your reasons for having a pseudonym are your reasons, and no one should out you for that. So don't out your friends if you know both their pseudonym and their regular name that they do their non-romance work under. Don't out it. It's fine. In terms of my limits on content under the romance and erotica genres, I absolutely do have limits, and I communicate those to the casting directors. I personally don't do a lot of dark romance. I do have one series that I'm doing that is on borderline dark, but that's not where I feel my storytelling strengths lie. And I'm 100% fine allowing that work to go to narrators who are going to enjoy the work and actually do their best work doing that kind of thing. My thought is, if I'm turning down a book because I'm not the right voice for it, if I were to accept that book, I would be keeping that work from someone who would be the right voice for it. So I'm taking work from someone who would be perfect for that project. I need to accept books that really play to my strengths, which dark romance is not one of them. So I allow that work to go to some other people.
So how do you prep for something that is that long? I mean, it's not like, we get a commercial and we read over the script a couple of times and we're ready. How do you prep? How do you market? Do you read the whole thing first, or do you go?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes.
Tell me.
Yeah, absolutely. 100, 1,000, 1,000,000% read the book first. I cannot say that enough or strongly enough. I actually use the services of a prepper who is also my personal assistant. She does admin stuff for me, but she also helps me prep a lot. So she will do a lot of the research for me, but I've only been working with her about 1.5 years. So before then, I was doing all of the research as well, too. And I brought her on board to help with the research side of things, primarily because I just wanted to spend more time recording and not looking up how to say different words. But as an audiobook narrator, it is your job to read the book before you start so you know what's happening in the storyline, or if it's a nonfiction piece, so you have a sense of the author's voice and the perspective that they're taking on the nonfiction topic. You need to understand what's happening in the text and the choices that the author is making. Then you also need to look up the pronunciation of any words that you don't know. So I keep coming back to this political nonfiction book that I'm recording right now because it's fresh in my brain. I've just been reading it and getting ready to start working on it. And this book, it has a lot of foreign dignitaries mentioned in the text. So I need to know how to properly say all of those names, the Secretary of State of Germany or whatnot. I need to know how to say their names properly. So that needs to be looked up. And again, I do now work with a prepper to help with some of those tasks. But regardless of whether you're hiring someone to help or whether you're doing that research work yourself, you do need to do that work and figure out those pronunciations. Anything that I don't know how to pronounce or can't find sources for gets sent back to the publisher or the author. if I'm working on a fantasy piece, for example, I will frequently have huge lists for the author for needing to know if they've invented words or invented names. I'm getting ready in another couple of weeks to work on book 2 in the Children of Ragnarok series by Cinda Williams-Chima, which is a incredible fantasy series. But it's based on Old Norse mythology. And I don't speak modern-day Norse, let alone Old Norse, which has an entirely different pronunciation structure than modern Norse. Like, there are sources that I could figure it out if it was modern Norse words and names. It's not. It's Old Norse. So for that one, for book 1, the publisher hired a scholar to get all of the pronunciations for me, and I've already let them know that they're going to need to do that for book 2 as well.
Love that. That is so cool. And you bring up, always 1000% read the book ahead of time. That's your response.
Yes.
I did a workshop. This is when young VO Kev in 2006 or 2007 was trying to find his way. Didn't know what he was going to do. But he was, doing things. He was checking things out. So I went to an audiobook workshop in New York with Hillary Huber and Pat Fraley.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is a Hillary story. Hillary, just what a great lady. Just a quick little story is I was running late. I was walking hurriedly down the streets of New York to get to the session. I am sweating at this point. I get upstairs and she's like, "You're fine." I was like 3 minutes late. And she's like, "We're just having bagels and stuff. Get yourself a bagel." I get a bagel. I go to slice it in half because that's what everybody was doing. I slice my finger wide open. It is bleeding profusely. And that's not even the story I came here to tell, Jennifer.
Oh, no.
but Hillary patched me up. She's, "Oh my gosh, you are." And I still have the scar to this day. Bobby, I'll show you. But
Oh, my gosh.
He always shows me his scars.
Hillary patched me up just like a sweet lady would do. She patched me up and, nerves are gone. But towards the end of the class, she was asked about reading ahead. And she's like, yes, every single time, because she learned her lesson. One time, you know how big Hillary is in audiobooks. She's narrated countless of them. So she got into a thing where she wasn't reading them as much. But she gets to the end, like among the final pages of this book. And the protagonist, she's narrating something about the protagonist. And it said something like, and that's how the accident happened, and that's the reason he spoke with a lisp his entire life. And she had to redo the whole thing. And, it was something similar to that, and it was, Hillary telling that story was so charming and fun.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. It is truly less of a surprise when you have that kind of thing happen than you would think. You would think that authors would introduce things like where someone is from or that they've got a really thick Irish brogue early on when the character's introduced. But no, they don't. They really don't. I cannot tell you how many times an accent or a very unique and distinguishing vocal characteristic has been described by the author in the last third of the book. Yeah, it's pretty common. You need to read the whole book.
Well, let's talk. You bring up characters. How do you get ready to do multiple characters? If there's half a dozen characters, how do you prep for that?
Sure. So from a very practical perspective, I make recording snippets of each character so that I can listen back to it. And this is especially helpful for series because that book 2 of the Cinda Williams-Chima Children of Ragnarok series that I just mentioned, I recorded book 1, which I think was like 16 or 17 hours long. It was a huge book, and this next one's going to be even longer. I recorded book 1 back in 2018. No, sorry, not 2018. I recorded it in 2021. And I'm now, 2024, needing to record the next book in the series. And, I've recorded a lot of books since then. So in order to make sure that I'm landing back in the same place with each character, I have files on my computer where I keep my prep notes that include snippets of me voicing each of the characters. And what I like to do is actually talk a little bit about the character in the character voice. So this is not from that series. This is from a different series. But one of the characters is the best friend, and she's just always so excited about everything. And so this is the kind of thing that I would record on her voice sound because it's me talking about her, but also saying it in her voice. So
love that.
there.
Yeah, that's good practice.
I make samples of that for all of the characters. And in terms of actually doing the character changes, I really sink into what psychologically makes the characters different from each other. So for that particular best friend example, which is a character of a book that I did last week, for that particular character, she's just over the top excited about everything all the time. So that is what I'm really focusing on and sinking into when I'm thinking of what her voice sounds like. Because she's so excited, the speed of the speech is going to be a little bit faster. And because she's so excited, the pitch is going to be a little bit higher too. And there's just this energy under everything. So if you can figure out what the psychological differences are for the characters, that tells you what their character voice should sound like. I'm of the mind that the listener is not expecting different people to be in the booth for every character if it's a single narrated book. So you don't have to truly sound like a different person. I'm still me. All of the characters are me. But if I can sink into the part of myself that is similar to that character, like that best friend's excitement that I just used as an example, I can be me, but in that character's voice. And I find that it works pretty well and gives me a lot of room to play, because if the characters are well written, there are always going to be those differences that I can hang my teeth on.
We've spent a fair amount of time with Scott Brick, and he says basically the same thing. And he's like, I don't change my voice so much. I change the mood, or whatever the mood of the character is at that time. I do that. Yeah. And that is what separates. It's the feeling and really connecting with the emotion of what's going on there. So it sounds similar to what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, so you are killing it in audiobooks, and I love all this stuff that you're sharing with our listeners. But what about other genres? Do you do any work in other genres? Do you do any more corporate narration?
I have one client that I do very occasional e-learning for, and everything else that I do is audiobooks.
Wow.
And it's just what I love. I really enjoy it. There are other genres that at some point I might want to dip my toe into. Actually, at VO Atlanta, where I saw you guys, at VO Atlanta this year, I went to a documentary narration workshop with Tom Pinto, and that is something that, not this year, but, maybe in the next few years, I'd love to look into more. It's the sort of thing that I would really enjoy. I do enjoy the e-learning work that I do, which is very, very little, and would be open to doing more of that. But honestly, audiobooks keep my calendar really full right now, and I have not needed to go outside. And also, we spoke at the beginning a little bit about, creative joy and creative fulfillment and the work that I'm doing, and audiobooks absolutely give me that in spades. And again, I'm not feeling the need to go outside the genre. So for right now, this is where I am. I'm certainly open to other genres, but I love audiobooks and don't need to go elsewhere right now.
What's up? This your boy Trey Mosley, and this is the Making Waves VO podcast with Double K, Kevin Kilpatrick, and my girl Bobby Maxwell. Give a listen, y'all.
Bobby, this is a hot time of the year, and it's always a great time to buy gear at Full Compass. And why is this why is it really good right now?
Well, we're excited about this. We have a special code for Making Waves listeners that you can get 10% off of almost anything at fullcompass.com. I mean, who doesn't love a sale? I know I do.
I know, and we were so excited. We got the email this morning from Full Compass, and they said, hey guys, we have a new code, and that code is Making Waves, all one word, Making Waves. Waves without the E, though, of course. It's a great time because there's a lot of VO coming up, right?
Oh, yeah. We did an episode about this on Making Waves, about what's happening this fall and what's happening up until the end of the year. So everybody's kind of doing updates and bettering their equipment. So if you want to find some great products, and they pretty much have it all, and you can get 10% off with Making Waves, the code, when you check out, do it.
think about it, you could buy, a $500 microphone and you save $50. I mean, and then with that $50, you could buy some new cables. On and on and on. But I will tell you, it is a limited time only on the new code, Making Waves. And there are a few exclusions, Bobby.
Yeah, it is for a limited time on purchases of qualifying non-sale items, not valid on parts, cannot be combined with any other offer. Additional exclusions apply. $1,000 maximum discount and limit one redemption per customer. So get it all at once. Offer not valid on previous purchases. Non-transferable single-use promo code. Call 800-356-5844 for details. Void where prohibited.
That code, one more time, is Making Waves. MAKINGWAVS. Making Waves. No E.
10% off from Full Compass and fullcompass.com.
We know VO.
Now back to the podcast. It seems like a few times I've jumped on the social media voiceover pages, and I see a fair amount of chatter, about scams or low rates. How common is that, a scam in the audiobook world? I think this is like, it's not really true. They're just, and what is the scam to begin with?
Sure. So a lot of times the scam is someone has put a book through put a prompt through an AI generator, and so has an AI generated book that they're trying to get someone to narrate to make a certain amount of money. There are systems that people can use to sort of game the page reads on Kindle Unlimited and to game the listens and the downloads on Audible that would allow someone, if they find a narrator for that book, to make not a ton of money, but if they do it enough times, they can make not bad money. Just having these awful AI nonsense books put through. And that's sort of the kind of scam that is most frequently talked about. They're just complete garbage books that are written purely to feed into Kindle Unlimited scam systems or Audible Listen scam systems. So my biggest recommendation to narrators who are wanting to get started and a little afraid of those scams is to communicate with the author or the rights holder and let your gut instinct kind of guide you there. I work with students a lot on how to reach out directly to independent authors that they're interested on working with. And you absolutely can do that. Just find, if you go through the Amazon listings for independent authors, see if they've got audiobooks. If they don't, find their contact information and reach out to them. It's marketing just like you would be marketing to any other voiceover client. So that way you're reaching out to a known entity. You know this is an author who's someone who cares about their work. If you're going someplace like ACX where there are just listings posted, communicate with the person who's posted the listing. And if you get any weird vibes from that communication, then don't audition or don't accept it. There are plenty of opportunities out there. You do not need to accept a project that doesn't feel comfortable to you. When I'm working with a new-to-me indie author who has approached me or has reached out to me through ACX, I'm always going to request a copy of that manuscript ahead of time before signing the contract to make sure that the manuscript is actually a good, real book and not one of those AI garbage things. Personally, I also don't do just straight royalty share. I always charge a PFH rate. How much will depend on a lot of different factors, but there will always be some cash in the way that I organize my royalty share agreements so that at least my post-production costs are completely covered. And again, for a lot of different factors, sometimes I'll ask for a little bit higher PFH rate in addition to the royalty share. So doing that, again, protects you a little bit. There's that old maxim that customers who are 100% price conscious are going to be your most difficult customers. And so if you are charging slightly higher rates, such as doing royalty share with a PFH component or charging standard PFH rates rather than, scraping the bottom of the barrel, you're actually going to be getting much better projects and much more of a business relationship with the author. It is a business partnership with the author when you're working independently with directly with authors.
Since you brought up rates, is it the same as in other genres that you have some people who will try to undercut you because there are so many voiceover talents out there, or kind of a race to the bottom, or is it pretty much audiobooks a certain rate is acceptable?
So there are definitely narrators out there accepting the 50 PFH rate on ACX. Honestly, I wish that weren't even there. It shouldn't be there. It's just much, much, much too low. The union minimum for projects through ACX is 250 PFH. That is not, I guess, necessarily standard industry-wide if you're working with publishers, but when you're working with publishers, they take care of a lot of the stuff that you're responsible for on ACX. So some of I'm not current on all of the rates with all of the publishers and audiobook producers through the union right now, but there are rates in the range of 190, 200, 210, 215, 270 for some of them, PFH, meaning per finished hour. In terms of having people cut under, again, there are narrators willing to accept those low rates. Truthfully, those books that are going for those low rates are not good quality books that I want to have on my Audible catalog as representations of who I am and the kind of work that I do. So I think it's worth it to get a little bit of training so that you're able to charge higher rates and have books that you're truly proud of in that Audible catalog. Casting directors from the publishing companies do look at the Audible listing for new to them narrators. And if you've got a book on there that clearly has a horrible cover and the text is obviously AI generated, that's not going to represent you very well and make you very likely to get that publisher work. So it is worth it to get a little bit of training so that you can make the higher rates.
This is the Making Waves VO podcast with Kevin Kilpatrick and Bobby Maxwell. I, on the other hand, am Eric Romanowski of Ear-Blowing Audio, and I don't know the first thing about podcasts other than that you should keep listening to this one.
Love it that you're looking out for the industry like that, Jennifer. I've got one more question for you. I know Bobby may have more, but you talk about your passion, your love for audiobooks, and this could translate to other genres as well. But how did you find your connection? Why do you think you are so connected to audiobooks?
So a couple reasons, but I think the biggest one is actually, so a little bit of a backstory. I have a chronic pain condition, and part of that is I have some vertigo and get really carsick when I go on car trips. And growing up, my family did a lot of road tripping almost every weekend, all summer, and at least once or twice a month through the winter even. We would go on weekend road trips traveling 6 or 7 hours one way. That's a lot of time in the car for someone who gets really carsick. I was also a bookworm, and so any time growing up that I had 5 minutes to spare, I wanted to be reading. Well, I've got 7 hours in the car when I'm going to be carsick and not going to be feeling my greatest. What I want to do is read. But if I read, that makes the car sickness worse. So I was quite young when I started listening to audiobooks. My parents got me a Walkman with cassettes because, yes, that's how long I've been listening to audiobooks. And we would check out cassette decks of audiobooks from the library for me to listen to on these road trips. So I have been a fan of audiobooks since I was like 5 or 6 years old.
She's
love the art form. Yeah, I know. I love the art of audiobooks. I love the art of a story beautifully told with the human voice. It ties back into our oldest human traditions of oral storytelling around a campfire in the evening, that we've been doing as humans for millennia. So I really do have a passion for the art form itself. The passion for doing it myself, I think, probably comes from the acting background that I mentioned. I get to play all of the characters. I actually was having a conversation with my dad a couple weeks ago when we saw him for July 4th. And he wanted to know if I missed on-stage acting at all, because I did plays and musicals and, of course, the opera work. And so I did a lot of on-stage things before I got to audiobooks, and I've not done any since I started doing audiobooks. And I was a little surprised at his question, but I told him, honestly, no, I don't miss it at all. The kinds of things that I'm cast for now in audiobooks are roles that I would never have been cast for on stage. That physically I don't look the part, or I'm now too old physically. My face looks too old to play a 14-year-old character. But I do a lot of YA and play plenty of 13 and 14 and 15-year-olds. I mentioned I have a middle grade book that I'm recording later this week. The main character in that book is 12. I'm obviously not going to be playing a 12-year-old on stage, but I get to play a 12-year-old in my audiobook work. And I'm playing all of the characters, not just the main character. So I get to play the crotchety grandmother, and I get to play the grumpy neighbor, and I get to play the mom, and I get to play the dad, and I get to play the little siblings. I get to do the whole world for the listener. And it is so much fun. I get to play every day when I'm working. It doesn't ever feel like work.
You can definitely tell your passion for it. That's awesome. And we're going to have you talk about your narrator's retreat coming up in just a minute.
Yeah, sure.
I was curious, do you coach for audiobooks? And if so, how can they reach you?
Sure. I do some coaching for audiobooks performance-wise. My main focus for coaching is actually more in terms of the business side of things, in terms of creative entrepreneurship. And for that, I actually coach outside of audiobooks as well. I've worked with musicians. I've worked with actors who don't do any voiceover or audiobook work. I actually have one visual artist that I've worked with. So I do creative entrepreneurship coaching, which is very much focused on how do you structure the business so that you are financially getting what you need, so that you're creatively doing work that you enjoy, and so that personally you're getting time away from work and not feeling like you're hustling 100% of the time, so that you actually have a personal life aside from your work. Because I feel like the more vibrant and rich your personal life is, the more vibrant and rich your creative life will be too. It's a very virtuous cycle kind of thing. So I do a lot more business coaching for creatives than I do performance work, but I do have performance options in my coaching repertoire. And if anyone is interested in those, they can reach out to me. My coaching website is starvingartistnomore.com. And the starving artist stereotype is something that I feel really strongly is very harmful to artists and creatives in our culture. The statement that you should starve and be financially destitute just because you want to do creative work as your life's job is ridiculous. We absolutely can make money doing what we love to do. So, starving artist, no more.
Awesome. So we've heard of all these voiceover conferences in major markets, Atlanta and Dallas and LA. And so when I saw there was a retreat in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yes.
Tell us about your narrator's retreat coming up real soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are lots of voiceover conferences in those major markets, but when you look at audiobook conferences specifically, they're pretty much focused in LA or New York with occasional one-day workshops elsewhere. So I wanted to do something in the middle of the country in Cincinnati, which is my city that I love to call home. And Bobby, you used to live here, but you left. But it is a beautiful, beautiful place. We've got 11 incredible faculty members who are not the typical faculty that you see at all of those New York and LA conferences all of the time. These are incredible coaches and narrators who do amazing work, but maybe don't get pegged for those big name conferences. And we've got 5 casting directors and producers from various audiobook production companies and publishing houses who are coming and also going to be presenting. Again, for a lot of the workshops and retreats out there, the casting people are invited just to be there and maybe to be on panels. But to my knowledge, people don't often ask them, what do you want to talk about? And so I did that. I asked them, what do you want to talk about? I want to give you a forum to share with the industry the information you are passionate about and that you want to talk about. So Eric Black from Dreamscape Media is going to be talking about how to prep. He and I are putting a prepping session together. Amy Rubinate from Mosaic Audio is going to be talking about the pivot, figuring out how to use the skills that you create and develop in your creative work in other areas as well, so that you are fully financially supported with the work that you're doing. And Stephen J. Cohen from Spoken Realms is actually working with Amy on that one. Lisa Kahn, who just left one of the big 5 publishing houses to open her own production studio, Prose Garden Productions, is going to be talking about how to work with audiobook directors and self-directing in the booth. Again, these are the kinds of topics that I've not heard the casting industry side of people be able to talk about before, because a lot of times the panels that they're asked to do are, how do we get work with you? And obviously we're going to be talking about that kind of thing too. But I really wanted to give them a chance to share the information that they felt was important for narrators to know and to understand. The retreat is going to be 4 days of lots of time to fellowship and get to know everyone. It's going to be a relatively small group, including the faculty. We're probably going to have around 50 to 55 people, so very tiny and intimate. We're going to be working on coaching sessions, so everyone's going to have a chance to read for all of the coaches. We've got panels, we've got topic sessions scheduled, like I was just mentioning. And something that I think is super fun is everyone who attends the retreat is going to have an opportunity to record a very short little 2-minute demo. And I have about 25 casting directors so far who are not part of the retreat who have agreed to listen to all of those 2-minute demos after the retreat.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's big. That's big.
Yeah. I'm really excited about it. This is the first year that we're doing it, and my hope is that it will be an annual event. But I keep telling people I'm going to wait to see how the first year goes before I commit to that, but I think we're going to do it again next year.
And how can they sign up for that?
Sure. So all of the information is, again, on my coaching website, starvingartistnomore.com. And if you go to the coaching tab on the website, Thriving Narrators Retreat is right there. The direct address is starvingartistnomore.com/Thriving Narrators Retreat, but you can just go to the main page and get the link as well.
This has been so much fun discussing audiobooks with you, Jennifer. Jennifer Jill Araya is her professional name, her full name, and that's how you can find her online if you want to check out her work. It's all over Audible. So, you're certainly going to find a favorite title. But Jennifer, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for joining us on the Making Waves VO podcast.
Thank you. This has been a delight. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
It's so great to talk to you again.
Likewise, Bobby.
All right, take care. Bobby, I'm often teased and intrigued by the audiobook world, and then I think about those hours and hours that you have to spend, and then oftentimes I'll go, that's better suited for somebody else. Like we talk about,
she said, yeah.
Yeah, I've done a few of them, but it's like I've got to kind of almost handpick the ones I'll try to get.
Didn't you say you did a Bible or something?
Well, I did the Bible stories for kids.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I did narrated 40 Bible stories for kids. That's on an app. But I've done, I did a romance. I did a self-help. I did do a religious one. So I've done a few of them that I was cool doing. And, all the specifications were agreeable. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm anything, because there are people that are better suited for them, quite honestly. But there's some that I'm like, I can do this and I can do it well. So I'll pick those now and then. But yeah. But audiobooks, Jennifer was so great and so open, and what a bunch of great knowledge she shared with us.
Oh yeah, that's what how many years? 6 years, and she is just killing it.
It's amazing. Like, she was clearly meant to do this, but being around, acting all that time and on stage in the opera, opera is acting. So
yep.
She was ready to go. When she decided for that career change, she was ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby, the Making Waves VO podcast presented by Full Compass, fullcompass.com.
We know VO.
And on the next one, what about a pontoon party, y'all?
Y'all on a lake in Tennessee.
Yeah, listen for that one. The Making Waves VO podcast is going to be on the pontoon next time.
Get it.
The Making Waves VO podcast is produced by K2 Media Productions with hosts Kevin Kilpatrick and Bobby Maxwell. Sound design and editing by Jason Traver. Production assistance by Lacey Deline. Publicity and social media by Shannon Scott and Silas Phillips. Be sure to subscribe to the Making Waves VO podcast on your favorite platform. For all episodes, merchandise, gear, and more, visit makingwavesvo.com. Until next time, I'm AJ McKay. Keep making waves.